Hello and welcome to Roportaj. This is Danish Bindavi. Penguin Publishing House has come up with a new book titled The Great Indian Manthan, which is authored by Pushparaj Deshpande and Gurdeep Singh Sappal. The book sheds light on how the liberals have failed to secure the secular ethos of India and how Sangh Parivar, with the passage of time, was able to play with the emotions of people with their half-baked truths to come to power in India. The book actually dives deep into why it is important for India to remain a secular country. Listen into one of the authors for this discussion. Then, now explain for the viewers, the founding fathers of India actually put the country on an egalitarian path. But has the state failed to preserve what founding fathers had tried to do?
Right. Hi, Danish. Thank you for having me on your show. Yes, in a sense, what you are saying is very true. There has been a concerted attack on the constitutional idea of India and, of course, the values that underpin that idea of India. And the blame, I think, should not just lie at those regressive organizations and parties that have directly attacked the political values of the Indian state, but also more importantly, those parties that fail to actually ensure that those values were sufficiently embedded in the national consciousness, the mass consciousness. Now, as Dr. Ambedkar said earlier when he was this thing, that if a parliament or if a judiciary passed a certain law, but if the masses, if the nation at large was unwilling to accept it, those laws or those set of values, no parliament, no judiciary, no government is able to actually do anything about it. And this is pretty much the same situation. So in the sense, what I'm trying to say is that progressive parties have failed to create a constitutional consciousness in the last 70 years, which is what led to this attack.
After the founding fathers put India on this egalitarian secular path, the Sangh in right 1947 opposed the idea. Was it on the part of Sangh Parivar, was it treacherous that they went basically against the state?
Yeah. So in a sense, the Sangh Parivar has always been at the fringes of Indian society and the mainstream. So in a sense, the freedom struggle, other people who are not part of the mainstream freedom struggle, even the subaltern freedom movements that existed, whether they were Adivasi-led or Dr. Ambedkar and the depressed classes at that time, then the Dalits, as they are called today, all of these movements agreed on a certain set of values, agreed that, see, we might have differences on how we sort of approach a certain aspect, but we are all united in the national interest. Now, the Sangh Parivar has fundamentally questioned that idea of the nation. They are arguing that, see, Christians, Muslims, other minorities, including Jains, Buddhists, Sikhs, don't belong to the mainstream. We are willing to tolerate, not even embrace, we are willing to tolerate Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs because they were traditionally born in India. In the sense, the religions originated in India, but otherwise we don't believe in this. So that was their first point of cleavage. And the second point of cleavage is that they have argued, Golwalkar and Savarkar have argued way before, their chief ideologues have argued that the constitution accords not just to minorities individual rights, but also to every citizen rights. They have said that Adivasis and Adivasis and Dalits should not be getting equal rights. And they believe in a very hierarchical structure. At that time, it was caste, but now then they added on to that the communal angle. So they have always resisted this constitutional idea of India that no matter who you are or where you come from, you deserve equal rights. That is what they have resisted.
But then why is Sangh so much against Islam and Christianity? Is it because that both the religions were not born in subcontinent, the Indian subcontinent as we call it?
That is one part of the problem, that they feel that neither Islam nor Christianity are originally Indic religions, in the sense born in the Indian subcontinent, but they also have other fundamental issues. See, Jinnah and the Sangh Parivar have a lot in common. Both of them agree to both Jinnah and the Pakistan as a state, the formation of a state, and the Sangh Parivar believe that a nation is linked not to the individual and individual vote, one man, one value, one person, one value, but to his or her religion. So the fact is that they want to create a theocratic state. They want to create what is called a Hindu Pakistan.
Where the Sangh people, the Mahasabha in 30s and 40s, were those leaders first to accept the partition?
The Sangh Parivar was one of the first proponents, along with Jinnah, who actually argued for the two-nation state. In fact, the two-nation state theory is propounded first by Savarkar, way before the Muslim League. In fact, he talked about that in 1922. And Muslim League and other sort of Hindu Mahasabha came onto that idea much later. So in a sense, it's the far right has fed into the far left. Too extreme. Islamic fundamentalism, Hindutva fundamentalism, both of them have fed into each other.
So, but then why is now RSS blaming Gandhi, the father of the nation, for dividing the subcontinent? If Savarkar in 1922, as you rightly put it, that he was the first proponent of two-nation theory, then now why they are blaming now the Mahatma Gandhi for this partition, for accepting the terms and conditions of Mr. Muhammad Ali Jinnah?
This is a very interesting question you're asking, Danish ji, because see, they agree to the fact that India should be a theocratic state, like Pakistan agrees that it should be a theocratic state. They completely abide by that. However, electorally, time and again, they have got basically, to put it in a, not to put too fine a point, unko phatke pade hai for arguing that partition was good, was necessary. Because on one hand, they argue that hum log akhand Bharat chahte. We want this larger than life India, which includes Baluchistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan,
but
Bangladesh.
Isn't it a hypocrisy? Because Savarkar was the first one, as you said it, in 1922 in accepting two nations theory. Now, how can they make an Akhand Bharat?
That's exactly my point. How do you make Akhand Bharat when you actually argue that certain portions of the so-called portion of sections of Akhand Bharat are predominantly Muslim dominated? So you have to see, it's like mental gymnastics. They want to agree to two-nation theory, but they also want Akhand Bharat. Now, how do they reconcile that? They don't know. Which is why they are saying that it's like we are for Akhand Bharat, we are also for two-nation theory. But by the way, partition we did not do. Mahatma Gandhi did it. It's just a hypocritical argument that they keep furthering because they can't reconcile these two conflicting ideas.
One more point. RSS, the Sangh Parivar, cannot absorb these 20 to 22 crore Indian Muslims. They cannot absorb them. Now, if they go for the Akhand Bharat, which will have the Bangladesh side and the Pakistan side, so the Muslim population all of a sudden will explode. Would then they agree to carry on all this, the entire Muslim population with them?
This is a question that they have not resolved ever internally also. Their argument is that if this ever happens, we will basically expel the Muslims. Where are these guys going to go? No one knows. So this is like, those khayali pulao ki aage dekhenge kya hota hai. Let's cross the bridge, then we'll do it. But interestingly, now that you've raised this, knowing the fact that this is not possible, it's not geopolitically or politically possible, they have now switched to saying that Akhand Bharat is not a geopolitical construct. It is in fact a cultural construct. So agar aap Indian ho, you're staying in Canada, but you believe in RSS, you believe in this Hindu nation theory, two nation theory, and the fact that India should be a Hindu theocracy, then you are part of Akhand Bharat, which is what is allowing them to do this diaspora work.
Mr. Deshpande, in your book, in your work, one of the fundamental things that I liked about it, you write, and I quote you, that while state focused on transforming the society, this is exactly of 50s and 60s and 70s you are talking in the book. At the same time, the Sangh was focusing on transforming the individuals. Explain this to the viewers. What do you mean by transforming a society and transforming the individuals?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you for asking that, Danish ji. See, basically what the Sangh was focusing on was hacking our hearts and minds. That's what they were focusing on. They wanted each one of us to believe that, boss, India should be a Hindu nation. They wanted each one of us to believe that Muslims are invaders. Even if they have chosen to stay back after the partition, they are actually second class citizens who need to prove their loyalty. They have consciously tried to that Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism are sort of secondary religions, but they are part of Hinduism. Otherwise, I mean, they would have never made Gautam Buddha as one of the Dasha avatars, right? Technically, he's someone who's broken away from religion. So they were hacking on hearts and minds. That's what they were working on from bottom. But because there was a consensus at the top, freedom struggle and the architects of modern India, they were basically trying to transform India economically and politically. They failed in trying to transform India culturally. That is where the fundamental difference is.
So it's again we are again coming back to the state, that basically the state failed to preserve its egalitarian thought.
Sorry, I lost you a bit there.
Yeah.
The state failed to preserve?
The state basically failed to preserve that egalitarian thought.
Yes, in a sense, you could argue that. But I think this is also got to do with the traditional understanding of, there's this strict wall of separation between church and state from the United States. So India's founders and the architects of modern India strongly believe that religion, especially after partition, should be the purview of the individual. ये आपका और हमारे घर का मामला है. बाहर आप मत आइए इसके लिए. So we will not interfere in that. So they were being they had a lot of tehzeeb, they had a lot of sensitivity towards different communities and diversities. They said, let's not interfere here. But on the other side, there was this other vast behemoth, the RSS, the Sangh Parivar, which was saying, we don't care about these niceties. We are going to hack your mind. We are going to play havoc with your cultural and social norms. So in a sense, yes, because of their niceties, because of their constitutional proprieties that they imposed on themselves, the state did not intervene. But the RSS took advantage of that. And today we are facing the problem because of that.
Mr. Deshpande, again in your book, you try to explain the next leap bound forward was the 1990s. You write, and I quote you, that there were many groups, disgruntled groups, like the Dalits, SC, maybe Muslims and other groups, who were disgruntled because of the Congress policies, and then they started to go far away from Congress. What basically happened in 90? Why did the Congress basically actually fail to preserve these groups?
That's also a very interesting question, Danishji. So there are two parts to this. One is politically, the Congress party became more insular as a party. It sort of started reconstructing itself as a social democratic party like the European parties. कि एक ही ideology होगी, left of center, we'll be only left of center, we'll be welfare state, so on and so forth. But in doing that, they squeezed out other ideologies and other ideas. Originally, the Congress was this umbrella tent, right? So they started squeezing out the margins. And then what happened is that, especially during the late 70s and early 80s, loyalty was prioritized more over merit, which is what Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah are doing right now to the BJP, by the way. They are prioritizing personal loyalty to us rather than organizational or grassroots connect.
Is this present policy coming somewhere from the Congress? Are they taking the leaves from the Congress regimes?
Quite possibly. I mean, they could be learning from that also. And I also feel that I think at some point of time, any kind of centralized leadership starts becoming insecure about itself. They will not be willing to be first among equals. I mean, think about it today. Does Pradhan Mantri Modi, does Prime Minister Modi think himself as equal to any cabinet member? Does he think that Jaishankar is his equal, Dr. Jaishankar or Harshvardhan or Anurag Thakur? They don't. They're like, these guys are pygmies. Ye log mere chamche hai. So, once you start doing that, what happens is you start squeezing out grassroots leaders. Look at what is happening in Madhya Pradesh today, or in Rajasthan, or what happened with Yedurappa in Karnataka, Yedurappa ji. Or Raman Singh in Chhattisgarh. They have done the same thing everywhere. Textbook.
After 90s, we then again saw in 2004, the Congress comes back to power. And you have used a word. After they won elections in 2004, Congress leaders went into an intellectual coma. You have used the word intellectual coma. Explain to the viewers what this intellectual coma is rather.
Okay. So here we must look at what has happened in the preceding 10 years before the UPA, from 1994 onwards. Babri Masjid has happened. A huge rupture has happened in the secular fabric of the nation. And there were riots after that. And the BJP and the RSS has been on an upswing. The Congress party decided in 2004 that we must focus exclusively on economic and social development, which is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. So the rights-based paradigm, in a sense, focused on empowering individuals at the very bottom, because they felt that this is the best way for, if people have education, healthcare, employment, information right, all of these rights, they will be able to empower themselves, and we will not face any other regressive cultural problems. But post Babri Masjid, a poison was injected in India, and they did not sufficiently understand the speed at which that poison was spreading across India. That is what they failed in. That is why I'm saying that was an intellectual coma, because they failed to understand that that poison needed to be stopped and removed from the body. They felt that hum log, if we give antibiotics, ठीक हो जाएगा.
Basically, it was a cancer. They were trying to actually treat cancer with a discipline.
Exactly my point.
Then we see in 2012 and 2013 that there was this mass movement, India against corruption, and you again write about the same thing in your book. Why did the Congress government, why did the intelligentsia, Indian intelligentsia, why did the civil society leaders, why did the civil society as a whole, why did the journalists, the other things, the other people who were associated with all these things, why did they fail to understand, basically, as you rightly put in your book, you mention in your book that it was basically the Sangh who was behind this India against corruption. Why did the Congress government and all these people fail to understand what basically had happened? It was not a revolution. It was not a thing that was against the Congress government. It was a well orchestrated machinery was put behind all these protests, as you have mentioned in the book. Explain to the viewers, why did the entire setup fail to understand what basically was happening in 2012 and 2013? They also fooled the students. I do remember that Jamia, JNU, all these universities were up against arms against the Congress government. Why did everyone, including us, fail to understand what basically was behind these protests?
See, there was a genuine perception of corruption in the latter part of the UPA, right?
But as far as corruption is concerned, it was all Lalu Prasad Yadav was the only person who was convicted by the court. 2G scam and the other scams, they were not court, they completely acquitted all these allegations. Rather, all these persons.
No, I agree. I'm not saying that there was proof of corruption. I'm saying there was a perception. There was a deliberate campaign that the RSS and the BJP engineered to show India that there is widespread corruption. Now, you mentioned 2G spectrum. What was Kapil Sibal, who was at that time telecom minister, what was he arguing? He's saying that we are deliberately suppressing the rates at which we are selling 2G spectrum so that the companies don't charge you, the consumer, a heavier price. Why do we want to do this? Because you will get internet cheaper and mobile penetration, specifically smartphone penetration, will increase. That's why we have taken a policy decision to reduce prices. What did the government say? What did the CAG report say? They said that, boss, they are deliberately selling it cheaper because they want to pocket the money. Now, they have not been, as you rightly pointed out, there has never been any evidence of corruption. But the reason why we failed to understand what happened, the whole nation failed to understand what happened, is because there was a campaign that the RSS ran, and we were not sufficiently able to differentiate their campaign with our genuine grievances. दोनों को merge कर दिया उन्होंने cleverly. And mind you, this toolkit has happened exactly tailor-made in Brazil, in the United States. There is this huge campaign saying that, अरे establishment parties चोर है, establishment parties काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, अरे establishment parties are not giving us रोटी कपड़ा मकान सड़क बिजली पानी जहां जहां जीविका in the manner in which we expect. That means corrupt है. Who capitalized on that? These far right parties. And then this shining armor comes up, knight in shining armor, कि मैं आपको बचाऊंगा, don't worry, मैं हूं ना. And we fell for it. Everyone fell for it. और इसमें कितना पैसा गया है कि just imagine how much money went into actually creating this campaign.
After that, we have never seen Anna Hazare again on any platforms talking against corruption or against the present government.
I mean, you know, the RSS used him and they threw him outside. Simple as that.
Point well taken, Mr. Deshpande. Let me read out a word which you have written in Germany in your book, in German, and I do hope that you will explain this word to the readers. And I do hope that I pronounce it properly. The word goes by Gleichschaltung, which means capitulations of the institutions. Explain to the viewers, what do you mean?
Yes. Yes. Now, when the Nazis took power over Germany in 1930s, in the early 1930s, they didn't just take over the institution. They didn't come together as an elected body. You know, what they did is they started infiltrating every institution, the media, the judiciary, the administration, the armed forces, the police forces, every institution that was that was upholding this governing structure of the state was infiltrated methodically by the Nazis. The same thing has happened in India. And this did not start, mind you, in 2014. This started the first time the Janata government came to power in the late 70s. That time, remember, Advani ji was the information minister, INB minister. Vajpayee ji was the foreign minister. A lot of people inducted into the media, into the bureaucracy, into the armed forces, into the IFS, the foreign services, who were actually aligned to the Sangh Parivar. Those people, by the time 2010, the latter part of the UPA government, these people had become secretary level rank people. And remember what happened. The reason India against corruption was actually successful was because these people internally sabotaged the government. The levers of government stopped functioning. The Home Secretary joined the BJP. The Defense, the Chief of Army Staff joined the BJP. The Bombay Commissioner who was investigating the case against the incumbent Home Minister, he joined the BJP. The Home Secretary who was handling the Nirbhaya case and the Indian against corruption case, he joined the BJP. Multiple other, the UN ambassador, the permanent ambassador to the UN, he joined the BJP. Do you realize? And they were all made ministers. They are today ministers. All of these people have been rewarded for sabotaging the welfare agenda of the UPA government. They were rewarded for sabotaging the Congress party and the government from inside. This is what state capture looks like.
Isn't it a failure on the part of Congress government? Because you are saying IB minister, Mr. Advani, who was the IB minister in 1977-78. Since then, Congress government has been power for, again, at least 20-25 years. Isn't this a failure of the Congress party, the Congress government, which failed to get hold of these people to throw them out of the system?
I completely agree with you because, you know, there are two ways of looking at politics. Ek to hai from the freedom struggle. This is the Congress party's legacy that we will live and let live. We are all Indians. We have to work in the national interest, no matter what their ideology, no matter what their ideas. We will take everyone along. But they're not realizing that ye kisi ke sage nahi hai ye log. They are only out to further their ideological agenda, which requires a certain kind of ruthlessness that the other side, the far right, is displaying. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he said, those who love war, those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively and act as effectively as those who love war. This is the problem. If you want to outdo the RSS, you're going to have to be as ruthless, as ideologically sharp and effective.
And if Congress wants to be ruthless and sharp, like the Sangh Parivar or the RSS or the BJP is, let me digress a bit in between. Do you think that Congress right now, if Sanjay Gandhi would have been alive, do you think things would have been completely different for the Congress party right now?
This is a very difficult question because it's one of those historical questions to which we can only imagine. I mean, I don't know what would have happened. He was certainly very pragmatic. He was certainly far more political in the sense that real politics Sanjay Gandhi knew properly. And whatever it takes, Sam, Dam, Dandabhed, to get one job done. Now, would he have been as effective in pursuing that ruthlessness, in leveraging that ruthlessness to pursue ideological goals? I can't say. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know him. I've never lived in the Sanjay Gandhi era, so I don't know whether he would have been effective. But that kind of ruthlessness is needed to tackle something like the RSS. Not every time, because see, Sanjay Gandhi
and Congress right
and
now
his kind.
lacks such a personality like Sanjay Gandhi.
I wouldn't say that. I think in the Congress there are people who are very devoted to real politics and can be as ruthless as he was. And there are people outside the Congress who could be inside the Congress who would be just as ruthless. But the ideological glue of the Congress is Rahul Gandhi. And his politics is based on compassion, Karuna, Maitri, and Sneha. So, how you reconcile this, I don't know.
Point well
But that
taken,
would be the challenge for the Congress.
Point well taken, Mr. Deshpande. Again, in the book, you mention about the electoral autocracy. Explain for the viewers what this electoral autocracy is all about.
Basically, we will be simple. Today, the people of India are voiceless. The government uses the people of India as fodder to get itself elected, and then all its decisions are taken in the interest of a very few microscopic section of society. None of basically, आपको फिरौती में charity, they're giving you dole to make sure that you live above the subsistence line. So they give you PM Kisan, they'll give you some money every few months. They'll give you a cylinder at a subsidized rate. They'll give you khana, 80 crore people are getting khana. Bare minimum they'll keep you. ताकि आप subsistence level के आसपास रहो. But you are not getting anything that will make you empowered and truly powerful. So you don't get good education, no scholarship, no free school. Your mobility is extremely constrained. So you see the railway prices, flight prices, everything is this thing. Employment is a big problem. Your per capita income and wages are stagnating. So it's a huge problem. This is an elected autocracy when the government does not work for you, but work for the interest of very few people. And think about corporate profits. This is the one simple solution. In 2013, 75% of corporate profits went to the top 20, 56% of the profits went to the top 20 companies. Today, it is 78%. Who is the government working for? They're not working for you. They're not working for me. They're working for 10 people who can give them chanda to win elections. That's it. As simple.
So this is what
this is not a government
is.
Sorry, just to make a point, this is not a government of, for, and by the people. This is a government despite the people.
Point well taken. Again, in the book, you have basically you are trying to draw parallels between China की जो Communist Party है and the BJP. You actually try to say that कि दोनों parties almost parallel काम कर रही है. Again, we see the irony. BJP on the one hand castigate Chinese, saying them they are our enemies. लेकिन यहाँ से उसी बात को फिर से देखते हैं और उन्हीं के नक्शे कदम पे चलते हैं. Explain for the viewers, what are you basically trying to say?
Neither of these parties are really ideological parties. ठीक है, भाजपा और कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी ऑफ इंडिया, उनको अपनी आइडियोलॉजी से कोई मतलब नहीं है. डू यू रियली थिंक चाइना इज अ कम्युनिस्ट स्टेट टुडे? दे आर नॉट. Or do you really think that the BJP has anything to do with Hinduism? They don't. They are just using communism and Hinduism. Their two creeds, their two dogmas. They are misusing Hinduism and communism to further complete control of the state. What the Nazis did in Germany. Same thing. और कुछ नहीं है. So the BJP is making sure that every institution is corrupted to a point where it becomes a pale shadow of the BJP. Nothing else is happening. इतने लोग ठूस दिए हैं. They have infiltrated so deeply that they will very soon be they want to recreate a single party system.
I completely get it. And I'm terribly running out of time, Mr. Deshpande. This Zoom shows me last 8 minutes left. And let me put my last question to you. Again, in the book, you have actually mentioned one more intriguing thing which I liked much. You write and you say in the book that it's basically the silent majority which the secular people need to reach out. ये साइलेंट मेजॉरिटी जो आप बोल रहे हैं, काइंडली इसको थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन करें कि व्हाट दिस साइलेंट मेजॉरिटी इज.
राइट, थैंक्स दानिश. देखिए, दिस इज माय पर्सनल बिलीफ एंड आई वॉक्ड इन द भारत जोड़ो यात्रा फॉर क्वाइट अ व्हाइल. We helped organize interactions in some states for Mr. Gandhi, both sitting and walking. And I have, matlab, hawa mein nahi bol raha hu. I have spoken to a couple of lakh people personally in the yatra. I genuinely think that people, the vast majority of India is secular, is democratic, is liberal. They
But
don't
they're
really
not speaking
care
out.
about what they're not speaking out because डरे हुए हैं. Businessmen don't speak out. They're really scared. I'm telling you, the business community is extremely scared because they have been attacked. GST has become a tool of extortion now. You fill up GST in the multiple rates, you give us taxes in the multiple rates, otherwise we will maro छापा. And छापे में 500 करोड़ निकालेंगे, 50 करोड़ निकालेंगे. जितनी आपकी, you know, there was this Kanshiram's very famous slogan, जिसकी जितनी आबादी उसकी उतनी भागीदारी. They have twisted it. BJP is now saying जिसकी जितनी आमदनी उसकी उतनी हमारी हिस्सेदारी. They are filling up their pockets based on your औकात. That's what they're doing. And the silent majority genuinely does not want this. They are all बिखरे हुए हैं. We just have to collect them together. And the Bharat Jodo Yatra was like a magnet floating through India. सबको चार्ज तरीके से पकड़ लिया उन्होंने. लेकिन यात्रा जब चली गई, those charged magnets have fallen aside. It is our job, and it is every individual's job, not just the political parties, to actually galvanize those forces and put them together. Because even in their heyday, the BJP has not crossed 50%. Even at the zenith right now, like the Nazis, they are a microscopic majority, and even in their own 50%, not more than 20% of them are the hardcore BJP bhaks. The rest of them are floating. They are thinking that the BJP is here because they are pro-development, pro-India, nation development, and pro-prosperity. The minute they realize that they are not interested in this, that's it. The game is over. तो जो अपनी सिविलाइजेशनल स्ट्रेंथ है, उसको हमने पकड़ना है, उसको हमने संयम और सक्षम करना है. That's it. Mr.
Deshpande, I do hope that we in coming times see that ये जो silent एक majority है, ये एकजुट होके आगे चले और इन सब चीजों से हमें थोड़ी सी राहत मिले. Let me hold your book once more for the readers and the viewers so that this reaches to the maximum people, and I do hope they read your book. Thank you, Mr. Deshpande, for talking to me.
Thank you, Danesh. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you.
Please subscribe to our channel Roportaj and press the bell icon to remain updated.